So what's up people, and welcome to another episode of Comics, Animations, and Movies. This time, yet another Alita Battle Angel trailer discussion. As you may know, about a week ago, the third and final trailer for Alita Battle Angel came out. And with it came out some more information with regards to the story. Now overall, when I looked at it, I thought that the trailer was really good. And so what I wanted to go over was, once again, how my thoughts were, comparing the information that's coming out in the trailer and comparing it to what I experienced in the comic. Now in this episode, I want to keep things relatively spoiler-free. I'll do a spoiler-rich episode in a later video, but even with the constraints put on a spoiler-free video, I still think that there are a lot of things that we can talk about. And so the first thing I want to go over is the overall look and feel of the movie. And I did mention in my previous video discussing the second trailer of Alita Battle Angel that I did like the overall look and feel of how the trailers were portraying the movie. During that discussion, I mentioned one of the things I really liked about it is, although it's showing the rundown, dystopian, dark sort of imagery that the story needs to have, there was always a feeling of beauty and romance behind it. And this trailer further confirmed that. I felt that this trailer showed it even stronger. And that's very interesting because this is the darkest of the three trailers. It's definitely the most action-packed and probably giving the most darkest message. And yet, there's still an underlying feeling of beauty. And part of it is because of the use of colors and the use of camera angles. But it really does fall in line and give homage to the comic. Because the comic, although it's extremely disturbing and it's extremely violent, there's always a feeling and a touch of sadness, of beauty, and of romance in the entire storyline. Not just the romance of a man and a woman's relationship, but a romance of a person coming to terms with herself and her past. And this whole feeling I felt was shown in the third trailer, and so I really did like that. So for example, let's take even the colors of her berserker body. You see here that the berserker body is shown in an extremely beautiful light. So, it's one of the most powerful mechanized bodies that comes out in the story. And if you knew the story, you will find out it's not just strong, but it's an extremely brutal body. And I won't go into it too much in detail here, but it is a very destructive force that is capable with the body. And yet, as you can see here, despite as sheer power and brutality that comes with the use of this body, the directors or the producers of this film gave it a beautiful kind of feel to it. It's still shown as a mechanized weapon, but at least it's shown with a tinge of beauty, and that's the types of feeling that I got with the comic. It's not really a direct, oh look how beautiful this is sort of imagery. It's just that the overall feeling always gave a feeling of melancholy, of sadness, and of underlying beauty, of kind of a soul trying to fight itself despite the environment trying to push it down. And that sort of feeling comes out throughout the entire comic, and you see it here. The city, as run down as it is, always showed a tinge of beauty and the character of its people, and I think it's shown well, at least through these trailers. Now, the most noticeable difference between this trailer and the previous ones is the amount of combat that was shown. And so far from what I've seen, I'm pretty satisfied with the way the combat is being portrayed, not only in the amount of combat and the quality of the CGI, but also in the way the fighting style is being shown. As you may know, and what has already been announced to the public, is that Alita is a master of a lost martial arts called Panzerkunst, which is translated to the armored arts. And this is a very special martial arts. It's not like the martial arts that you see in the real world now, but it takes advantage of a lot of the things that you would expect in a futuristic battle. First of all, it takes advantage of the cybernetic mechanisms that many of these artists have, as well as the environment in which the battles may take place, such as out in space. And so Panzerkunst is basically a martial arts that's done in almost 3 dimensions rather than the 2s that you see in traditional martial arts. Typically, you see that the two battlers, for example, would be facing each other and they will be going forward and backwards, possibly sideways, but always on that same plane, which is the ground, because you're battling on this planet. However, if you go out into space, then of course there is no ground. And so then you could consider basically the battle to take place from any angle. And Panzerkunst takes advantage of that. And so the types of battles that you often see Alita do are extremely agile. She would be flying she could be flying 30 miles per hour across the air, and while that's happening, she would be attacking. And typically when you see somebody fly and attack, it would just be a straight out punch or a kick. But what she does is she would be, twirling in the air and starting to prepare herself for a grappling type move to come in and use the momentum of the flight to be able to take down the opponent. And it's an extremely visual sort of environment. And what you see here is something that looks like it's portraying it well. Probably the best movie that I've seen so far that may represent something like that is the Spider-Man movies, especially the most recent ones. And if you saw, for example, Captain America Civil War and Spider-Man fighting in there, you see how he flies through the air. But while he's flying, he's actually preparing himself for battle and then uses that flight and the momentum of that flight to take advantage of that against his opponents. And Alita does exactly the same thing. Now, the difference between Alita and Spider-Man or Peter Parker would be is that Alita is a much more trained martial artist, a fighter, whereas Spider-Man learned a lot of it from his own experience. And in the beginning, although he did have his spider senses and his major agility, he wasn't the best trained fighter out there. So if you wanted to see how Alita's fighting style or Panzerkunst's fighting style will be, it will be like taking Spider-Man's agility, spider senses, and his flexibility and combining it with somebody like Black Panther or Batman's fighting skills, the really trained knowledge of how to fight. And then on top of that, since Panzerkunst is the armored arts and not the martial arts, and it takes advantage of all the cybernetic and weaponry that comes with many of these cybernized bodies, Panzerkunst also uses the advantage of weapons. So that would be more like the fighting style that you see Cable do in the X-Men. So if you were to combine Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Cable together, then you will get something similar to what you might expect Panzerkunst to be. And so now trying to portray that in the movie would be an extremely difficult feat. But so far from what I've seen, the speed at which she moves, the agility at which she moves, and the fact that she's actually fighting most of her fights in the air rather than just in the ground seems to indicate that the producers at least have some idea of what Panzerkunst is and is portraying it in the best possible way they know how. Now, with regards to plot and how the trailer portrayed it, I can't really go into much discussions there without giving spoilers. However, there was one curiosity that I noticed, and that is with regards to how Alita thought about her mechanized body. If you recall, she asked Hugo if he would consider her as a human being, considering how mechanized she is. And I found that extremely curious because, first of all, it's very off character to what Alita is. She's never really ever worried about that in the comics. And second of all, it's not really fitting of the world that she lives in. Maybe maybe they did it because the Western audience is so familiar with the artificial intelligence sort of dilemma and how AIs may become sentient sort of storyline that they put it in. But you have to understand, in the world that Alita lives in, cybernetic implantation are a common thing. They're about as common as glasses. It would be somebody like us asking somebody, do you think I'm like a human being because I wear glasses? Nobody would ever say that in this world, and nobody says that in their world because cybernetic implants are a standard thing, even to the levels that she has. In fact, there are some extremely weird looking human beings, far weirder than what Alita looks like, and they consider themselves human beings as well. So in this world, that sort of thought pattern never comes out because almost everybody has some sort of cybernetic implant, and it's actually the rare case when you actually see somebody who doesn't have any cybernetic implants, such as Hugo. But yeah, I mean, I found that to be curious, and I'm not exactly sure why the producers brought it in there because it really puts a whole perspective in that's very different to Alita's characteristics into the story. But overall, I did like the trailer. I really did like the trailer quite a bit, and I'm hoping that the trailer is a good representation of the rest of the movie and that it's a good representation of the comic. We'll have to see once we get to the theaters, and I guess it's been pushed back to February from the original December timeline, which I think is a good thing because it gets rid of a lot of the December crowd. But overall, yeah, I think it looks pretty darn good. I'm hoping that they do a good job with the movie. In any case, that's about it for this discussion. What do you think about the trailer? What do you think about what the upcoming movie may be like? Please post your comments in the comment section below. I would like to hear from you. In any case, I'll continue on with more comics, animations, and movies. And during the next episodes, I hope you join me. But until then, happy comic book reading, happy anime watching, happy movie watching, and as always, giant nice day, everyone.